Hey, welcome back, everybody. Happy Friday. Great to see you, and hopefully we're having a wonderful end to the week. Got an update here for you on this major pattern change with the potential for snowfall for many folks here across the country. I'm going to give you the latest on that here in today's video. Now, if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do so. Like the video, comment, let me know where you're watching from. Also, hit that bell for the latest notifications after subscribing. It's a great way to stay up to date. And, you'll be the first to know anytime I post an uploaded or an updated video with the latest model guidance and a breakdown of that guidance. I will also add here, if you haven't already ordered a calendar and you would like to, the link is in the description. Some of them have shipped out, and I've heard that many people are enjoying them so far. So definitely consider supporting the channel by doing that. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and get started here and start breaking down what we're seeing out there and what's to come on down the road. Now, taking a look at current satellite imagery across much of the country and the tropics, things are relatively quiet for now. Now, that's going to change pretty significantly here during the start of this coming week, but right now, again, relatively, calm conditions across much of the lower 48. We have one big storm system out here up into eastern Canada and Maine. We'll talk about that one. We have another storm system that moved off the east coast of the United States and kind of got out into the Atlantic sometime last night and actually produced a weak tornado into portions of North Carolina. And I told you that was a possibility in yesterday's video, and that ended up definitely panning out. Now, out west, we also have active weather as another major trough is dipping down, and this trough is what's going to start kind of the beginning of our pattern change with a pretty potent low pressure likely to develop late this weekend and into early next week, and then that'll really usher in what will be a pretty busy week ahead for the next 7 to 10 days. Now, the other thing you will also notice on satellite that we are going to talk about is what is Tropical Storm Sarah down towards the Yucatan. And luckily, this storm has trended to being less of a concern for the United States, but definitely something that we will still discuss in today's video. All right, so with that said, we will start with the tropics here, kind of get that out of the way, and then we will move on to kind of what else we're going to talk about from the near term to eventually that big pattern change on the way. All right, Tropical Storm Sarah, here she is. Again, not the prettiest looking storm you've ever seen, but definitely have seen uglier tropical storms. Now, the unfortunate thing with Sarah is we are seeing some devastating flooding down here towards Honduras and into surrounding countries and even into the Yucatan Peninsula. So really just terrible for you folks down there, and definitely keeping you in our thoughts and prayers. The one piece of good news, though, is because the storm is impacting these areas, we will not see impacts in the United States, at least in a direct way. Now, we could still see some rainfall, and we'll talk about that. But in terms of tropical impacts, really not going to be a concern for the United States. And you can see that on the latest track from the National Hurricane Center here. Again, sitting at a 50-mile-an-hour tropical storm, will likely maintain and sit around that intensity for the next couple of days before making landfall into Belize on our Sunday afternoon, and then likely dying over the Yucatan Peninsula. Then eventually the energy could get back into the Gulf of Mexico later into next week. But at that point, redevelopment into a tropical system is unlikely, but we could still see a remnant low with some enhanced lift and precipitation that we will need to discuss. All right, let's kind of time this out for you here and give you the latest model guidance. So here's the storm again, kind of spinning down here near Central America, and you'll notice not really doing a whole lot other than dumping a ton of rain into this region. And by the time we get to overnight Sunday into Monday, you're wondering, well, where is the storm? Again, dissipating over the Yucatan Peninsula due to that frictional force kind of messing with that center of circulation. And then again, later next week, this is Tuesday afternoon and evening, you'll notice a quick resurgence of moisture. But not a tropical system at that point anymore, more of just a remnant low that, if anything, is more of a mid-latitude storm as it kind of gains some fronts compared to anything tropical. So definitely dodged a bullet in the state of Florida. And I told you that Raphael was going to be the last storm, and I was off a little bit. Sarah ended up forming, but I do think Raphael will hopefully, barring any craziness in the tropics here, will hopefully be the last storm that maybe impacts people in a higher end manner outside of just flooding. So definitely, again, hoping that hurricane season is done and we can send it on out the door. But before we do that, again, big time flooding in Central America. Local spots here could see more than 20 to 25 inches of rainfall here on the northern shore of Honduras. And then even up into Belize, half a foot to a foot of rain along many of these coastlines. So again, if you have to be watching from this area, or maybe you had a trip planned or something, that is going to be a big time story. But we'll leave the tropics to that and hopefully send it away into the sunset as we enter the winter season. All right, so time for our Meteorology in Minutes segment. One of my favorite parts of the video here. And today, again, we're kind of seeing a perfect, beautiful meridional flow pattern, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about. So there's kind of two types of flow. There is zonal flow and meridional flow. This is meridional, and you're wondering, well, how do you know that? Well, it's kind of all due to this snaking pattern. You'll see here kind of how the jet stream here in these brighter colors goes down and then up and then down again. And then I'm also going to explain what these down and up pieces are, because I mention them all the time in my videos, and often I don't really explain what it is. But this area right here, you'll notice one dip here, another dip over here. These are what we call troughs in meteorology. These are extensions of lower pressure, is kind of the textbook definition, or in this case, lower heights. What I mean by lower heights is it might be hard to read, but if you kind of read some of these numbers, this says 543. This line says 546, 549, so on and so forth, getting bigger. These lower heights are colder temperatures. The lower the number, the colder that air mass is, and this is that extension of cold air. Now, the opposite of that is this buckle upwards you see. This is what we call a ridge. This is an extension of higher heights or higher pressure, depending on how you want to look at it here. And again, 585 here, 582, 579, you'll notice these heights decreasing as it moves upward, or, you can look at it the flip way, I guess. But again, it's an extension of this higher pressure. And again, troughs, cold air, ridges here are warm air. So we've got one cold pocket of air over the west, one cold pocket of air over the east, and then a warm pocket right in the center. And because of all this, what we're seeing is kind of what's correlating on the surface map. We're getting stormy weather on the diverging side of these troughs. We've talked about that in the past couple of videos. Here's one storm there. Here's another storm there. And then here's high pressure here. If I go back to our upper level map, this all makes sense. This one over here to the east, that's on the diverging side of this weakening trough. This one over here on our diverging side of our stronger trough out west. And then high pressure on the converging side of these upper level winds over portions of the east central United States. So that's your Meteorology in Minutes segment of the day. Definitely kind of a fun one, and one that I have enjoyed doing and kind of starting up on the channel here. All right, so what are we seeing out there right now on the ground? What kind of advisories, what kind of watches and warnings do we have? Well, again, relatively quiet. Now, we do have some active weather up into portions of eastern Canada and portions of Maine. This does include ice that is falling. So if you're watching up here into New Brunswick or portions of Maine, definitely let me know what you're seeing fall from the sky. But definitely could see some ice accretion out of this system. Further to the south, fire danger remains a concern in the northeast from Boston all the way up to Concord, New Hampshire, and then all of Connecticut, Rhode Island, and then back down the 95 corridor to New York, Philadelphia, and even out back towards the Pittsburgh area. So need to watch out for that fire danger. Again, we have not seen a lot of rain this fall, and conditions remain pretty breezy and dry in the near term. And they're already fighting multiple brush fires and forest fires. So need to definitely keep that in mind before burning anything. In fact, just don't burn anything if you're in that area. Is probably the best way to go about it. All right, Mid-Atlantic and Southeast. Again, we have some showers working off the coast of the Outer Banks. That is our storm system that moved through yesterday, now working offshore and strengthening pretty well as it does work offshore. So definitely probably seeing some breezy conditions here into the Outer Banks. Also some foggy conditions in and around portions of the Southeast this morning. Now out once you get into the Great Plains and the Mississippi River Valley, same story, foggy here, but remaining quiet. And then the next place of active weather is out west. Again, we have some higher level snow showers and some lower level rain showers. In fact, I also saw a very impressive picture of a funnel cloud in Oregon yesterday. And we kind of talked about how all of those rain bands moving in were convective. and that led to just enough kind of rotation and lift to produce a pretty impressive looking funnel there. So definitely interesting stuff. But again, I think the real story is going to be what's to come, not what's happening right now. And we'll start out west here in the near term. Let me back this map up a little bit. And this afternoon, again, more of the same. High elevation snowfall, lower elevation rain, and could be convective at times. But you'll notice we get into this afternoon, widespread mountain snow falling from Montana all the way back down into the Sierra Nevadas. Definitely adding to these ski resort snow totals for the year. And so far, it's been a good year for these ski resorts. We've kind of had this nonstop pattern of storm system after storm system into this region. And again, that continues today into overnight tonight. Now, eventually, this low pressure bringing all of this active weather will eject up into the plains, and we are going to get a pretty impressive little band of snow, I think, to set up here through portions of kind of eastern Montana and western North Dakota sometime tomorrow morning and afternoon. And again, that could dump a pretty good helping of snow in a bit, probably 1 to 3 inches, isolated spots, maybe cracking 3 to 5 out of that. Again, so a nice little storm system there. But at that point, that gets us into overnight Saturday into Sunday, and you'll notice another round of active weather in the Pacific Northwest as a new storm moves in. But as that's happening, also notice what's happening down into the desert Southwest through the Four Corners. You're seeing some precipitation move on in. We're going to kind of see a 1-2 punch next week out west. I say next week, really starting Sunday, we'll say, into next week. You'll notice as we look at the medium range here in a moment, things are going to get active quickly. But again, remember this picture. Remember this 1-2 kind of view before we, or just remember it for whenever we get here a couple more minutes on down the road. All right, out west, what's happening? Well, or out east, rather. We just did the west. So this afternoon, the big story is going to be, again, some isolated ice, I think, through Maine. And I'll talk about Canada here in just a second as well. I'm not going to forget you folks. But other than that, again, look at this impressive storm system moving off the coast of North Carolina this afternoon. I mean, this thing, if you were to flip it upside down, almost looks like a supercell. But definitely a very impressive low pressure there. And all of that because of this, again, we'll talk about this later, a very strong baroclinic zone along the East Coast. What do I mean by that? Well, basically, remember how cold it was yesterday in the Carolinas and Virginia? I want you to think of how warm the Atlantic Ocean still is. So we had temperatures probably in the 40s for most of the day in here, while ocean temperatures are still near 70 out here. What that creates is a very sharp boundary, and eventually, I'm kind of just continuing meteorology in minutes here, but I like talking. So, but what happens is you get just a little bit of upper level divergence or diffluence. That creates lift at the surface, and that lift over this very sharp pressure gradient creates low pressure to develop, and due to the very strong gradient that picks up the winds quickly, and then these low pressures often bomb out or just get very strong very quickly. And that's how we get those bomb cyclone nor'easters in the wintertime. Same process as what we're seeing with this low pressure. Only difference is this one's moving offshore. So we got a quick burst. Again, notice going from like 1,000 millibars to 990 millibars in only a couple of hours. So very impressive stuff there. But other than that, again, nice day today, Friday. A little chilly probably for many of us. That cold high pressure moving on in. And you can even tell that by the precipitation offshore. We're getting some ocean effect rain today for off the southeast coastline. But other than that, again, I think tomorrow maybe a couple showers into New England, into Maine. Could be snow or ice at times, but probably mostly rain. And then that gets us through Saturday afternoon and into overnight Saturday. Again, here's our storm system up into the plains I mentioned. That could produce some rain through Wisconsin and Iowa for your overnight Saturday. But other than that, things remain pretty quiet. All right, now I never pulled up the maps. I didn't forget about you. Well, I guess I kind of did, to be honest, but we're going to fix that. We are going to talk about that precipitation happening up into portions of Canada. So if you will, bear with me 1 second here. And here is Southeast Canada. So perfect. All right, so you folks up here, again, we've been talking about this icing potential, and here it is. Again, this afternoon, that ice showing up in pink, moving on through, and even some snow through portions of eastern Canada as well. Now, the totals I showed you yesterday are going to be about the same, and this should clear out by, probably Sunday. So this is this afternoon. This is Saturday afternoon, again, remaining kind of a wintry mess through portions of Canada. Mainly rain, though, through Newfoundland and even back down into Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. It's north of there that's going to have the higher ice concerns and snowfall concerns. So you'll notice that kind of gets on out of here. Snowfall totals probably the places that see mainly snow, 3 to 5 inches. Which I guess I can convert to centimeters in my head. Let's see, maybe 10 to 15 centimeters might be a fair bet. And then, maybe let me see, how do y'all do ice? Millimeters, I think. I should probably write this stuff down ahead of time. But anyway, same totals from yesterday's video. So if you don't know, you can go back and watch that one. I should have pulled up the map. I apologize. But definitely an icy mess for some folks. Or you can check on your local weather individual up there into Canada. Again, sorry, I did not mean to forget you folks. But I'll do better. Just keep commenting and reminding me that you're watching if you're watching in that part of Canada, and that will remind me more often. But at the end of the day, I'm a dumb American. So, okay, back to what's coming on down the road here. And this is where things get pretty interesting, I think, in today's video. And we kind of talk about the exciting stuff, that wintry stuff, that potential snowy pattern on down the horizon. But before we just go into who's going to see snow and how much snow, let's talk about the overall setup a little bit. Now, let me actually back this up just a little bit. This is basically where we left off on the mesoscale models. So remember I told you out west, kind of remember this 1-2 pattern, 1-2. Well, look at what happens in the upper levels at that same time. We've got one trough up here. Again, we just talked about troughs. We have another trough down near the four corners. This trough, though, is a little bit more closed off than our one up in the Pacific Northwest. And what's going to happen here is, again, look at what's happening on what I call the diverging side of these troughs. We're getting a ton of diffluence, meaning separating winds aloft. That's going to create a lot of surface convergence and likely cyclogenesis here by overnight Sunday into Monday. And you'll notice very strong jet streak associated with that as well. This could likely produce severe weather and potentially winter weather. Now, we'll talk about who could see the winter weather out of this, but just note, again, likely a strong storm forming down there and then moving up into the northern plains. And then after that, that's when things really get interesting. But before we get to there, let's talk about this storm system out into the desert southwest and into the southern plains that is likely to ride all the way up through the plains. Now, another way to show this to you, again, is our height map. Again, well below average heights into that region and then more well below average heights into the Pacific Northwest. Now, this blue blob you see into the PNW, or just, again, the Pacific Northwest into Western Canada, that's our cold shot that's on the way for the east. And that's what could bring some snow, even to portions of the east in the long run. But again, you'll notice kind of what happens here is our plain storm pulls north, and then when things get interesting is right about here. The two are going to combine here probably during the middle of next week, and then that's when the real winter weather potential will begin, and we'll talk about that here in just a moment. All right, so the big storm system here, these are the European ensemble members put together. Again, and you'll notice low pressure developing likely right around that time frame Sunday night into Texas, and then pulling north through Monday afternoon. And notice, this is a strong storm, folks. This could be below 990 millibars. We're talking 980 to 990 right in that range on these ensembles. This is going to produce a lot of lift. So we'll need to watch for severe weather. Kinematics will be quite high here. I think the real question is, how much moisture return do we get, or how much instability out of the Gulf kind of fuels this thing will definitely be one question to ask. But we'll move this further ahead. Then it pulls up into the northern plains. Again, still a strong storm. At this point, it begins to occlude and weaken a little bit as it pulls northward. And then again, that's when things could get interesting in the winter weather department. Now, you'll notice also right here, a couple of members showing up around Wednesday. The Euro wanted to develop a secondary low. The GFS wasn't on board. Trends have pointed to that secondary low not happening, which is going to lower snowfall chances into the plains for some folks. Now, not for everybody. You'll notice if I show you the latest GFS, here's the storm developing Sunday night. Monday morning, we've got a strong storm system, heavy snow into the mountains of New Mexico, big time severe weather into Texas, Oklahoma. And as we get into Monday afternoon, you'll notice here is that severe weather potential into this warm sector here from Texas all the way up into Kansas, even into portions of Missouri for your Monday. Then the storm pulls north, probably Tuesday, losing a lot of that thermodynamic support and even kinematic support at this point too. The storm begins to occlude, and it's at this point that snow begins to break out. Now you'll notice some blue into the mountains of Colorado. You'll notice some blue up into Minnesota and into the Dakotas. But most of the snow begins to fall here a little bit later on. And the latest models, again, have not been as excited about snowfall potential in the plains, but have maybe been a little bit more excited about snowfall potential into portions of the east. And we'll talk about that again in a moment. Just to show you the European model, same thing, strong low pressure developing into the southern plains. Definitely a severe weather threat with that for sure. That pulls north, again, occludes, and you'll notice as that occlusion process begins, we do see some snow break out into the northern plains. Also, that area I said secondary low pressure was trying to develop, European still shows a little bit of a short wave aloft, kicking up some precipitation, and that could produce snow as well, depending on how strong that gets, where it forms, and kind of the thermodynamic profiles there. Sorry, I just had my phone ringer on and it went off, so let me mute that for a second. All right, so severe weather threat, and then we'll talk about snowfall totals with the first storm, and then we'll talk about the east. So this is Monday, again, because today is Friday, Saturday. Well, actually, this might be Sunday. Let's see, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. This is Sunday, rather. Sorry. So as that storm is getting going and beginning to develop here, we are seeing a severe weather threat issued by the Storm Prediction Center, a big old yellow blob here from Abilene, San Angelo, back into Midland, and then even the Dallas-Fort Worth area under the gun for severe weather here, and that won't be the end of it. Let's see if we can go to day 4. If I can remember how to use this website, I promise I know what I'm doing. Probabilistic, that's what we have to do. There we go, day 4. So Monday, we do see another severe weather threat here into really the heart of Texas from kind of Dallas-Fort Worth back down the I-35 corridor, including Wichita Falls for Monday, and kind of portions of the Red River Valley. Now, you'll notice this is a pretty small area. The question still is how much instability returns. If we get more instability, then this could spread even further out. Again, a lot of kinematic support into the region. The question just is, can that kinematic support be overlapped with thermodynamics that also help this storm develop into something a little bit more potent? And that's what we'll have to wait to see. And then you'll notice as we go beyond that, no severe weather is forecasted as the storm pulls north and loses some of that kinematic support. All right, so talking about snowfall chances a little bit more here. This is the probability of snow within a 48-hour period, and you'll notice at the beginning of next week, let me back this up even. This is into this weekend, obviously high snowfall chances. This is, again, the chance of at least 1 inch of snow within a 2-day time frame. High in the Rockies, and then we do see a burst of higher chances into the northern plains and into the southern Rockies. This would be kind of that Tuesday, Wednesday time frame of next week. Down here into the Rockies, again, higher chances, not super high. I mean, this is only 60% chance of seeing that inch of snow within a 48-hour period, and still relatively low into the northern plains. The highest we're seeing is about a 50-50 shot up here. And this is lower than it was yesterday. But as we go further ahead into time, this is going to change. And in fact, I'm going to move this map on down the pipeline a little bit. And we're going to come back and look at it in a moment for the east. But do know that there are snowfall chances into the plains. And again, a little spoiler alert, you're seeing happening in the east there. Okay, so talking about the east a little bit more, again, one big storm out west and into the kind of plains here, but the same air mass that is producing those storms is going to eventually work eastbound. And here we go. This is kind of where we left off Tuesday afternoon. This is the GFS model. Here is that storm system. Again, at this point, you'll notice it is occluded as it is stacked with the upper levels. But at the same time this is happening, we do have a big trough dipping down, bringing that cold air with it. And eventually what happens is this trough becomes quite amplified and eventually cut off. So look at the upper level map here next Thursday afternoon here on the GFS. So this is under a week out now. I mean, this is a huge upper level low and probably a cutoff low as well at this point. And how do I know that? Well, you'll notice kind of how this whole big circle here gets cut off from the overall pattern. And folks, this is a look that would produce a big time northwest flow snow, as well as the potential for some snow into the Ohio Valley from Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, This is a look that supports that for sure. Now, a couple of days ago, it looked like maybe this could have been further north, and we could have seen big lake effect snow out of it. That's still a possibility, but it has shifted a little bit further south here, and this now implicates the Smokies all the way up into West Virginia, the higher terrains there for potential pretty big snowfall with a look like this, and also just a big pocket of cold air over the eastern United States. So how could this play out? What could this look like? Well, again, we'll pick up here. This is Tuesday afternoon. Our low pressure up into the plains becomes occluded, but what happens is our trough becomes quite negatively tilted. And what do I mean by that? Notice the shape of where these blue lines are kind of extending down here. This is a negative tilted trough. And this is the kind of troughs you want for big time cyclogenesis or a strong storm to form. And that's exactly what happens here. This is next Wednesday afternoon. Again, notice what happens here from Illinois into Ohio on the latest GFS. Also, I'll mention down here, this is what was left of Sarah moving through Florida, bringing some rain on Wednesday. But here we go. We go from a little bit of rain forming Wednesday afternoon to overnight Wednesday. We've got a 990 millibar low. So this is one of those bomb cyclones I was talking about, and you get that with these negatively tilted troughs. Now, what happens is, again, you're seeing a lot of rain here. You're wondering, well, where's the snow I was promised? Here's what happens. This very strong low pressure funnels in all of that cold air, becomes occluded, and we've got kind of a mega snowstorm for somebody here setting up with a look like this. Now, if this happens, again, big time snow for somebody. If this doesn't happen, then we'll be talking about a different scenario. But this is some pretty wicked weather, folks. I mean, we've got heavy rain in a place like Detroit, and then just puking heavy snow over the state of Ohio with the same setup. And the reason this happens is all of the cold air, again, getting funneled in like this into the storm, while warm air is getting pulled out of the Atlantic in a manner like this. And you get snow actually on the south side and rain on the north side, and even kind of a river of rain and precipitable water out of the Atlantic into this storm. So a pretty wild look on the 6Z GFS from this morning. And then you'll notice this kind of hits the Appalachia chain and squeezes out a ton of snow from the Smokies all the way up into West Virginia, Pennsylvania. And you'll even notice kind of some deformation banding happening up here to the north. Could see some active weather out of that as well. So, I mean, it's a pretty crazy look on the GFS. This is about as calm ahead of a storm as you can get. Again, occluded at this point. So seeing snow around the center of the storm and beginning to weaken slowly, but a huge kind of squall line on one side, snow on another. Just, again, a setup that would bring really pretty crazy weather on the latest GFS, and then kind of gets a reinforcing shot and then cranks up the lake effect snow machine 7 to 10 days from now as that low pressure, again, is occluded and then pulls northward and creates more of a favorable flow across the lake. So a crazy look on the latest GFS for sure. Latest European is actually pretty similar, folks. So we'll pick up the same time frame. You'll notice same story, huge low pressure developing along this negatively tilted trough. We've got a big storm in the Ohio Valley and through portions of the Great Lakes this time next week. In fact, even a little sooner than that. And look at this, same story, very strong storm. This would be producing very strong winds, heavy snow on the south side, heavy rain on the north side, which again, I know is flipped, but it's just the kind of pattern here. Now, the difference between the European is the cold air supply. I'll show you the GFS. Let me back it up just a little bit again. Notice all of these blue ISO or these blue height values or contours. There's a lot of cold air around this storm system. The European has much less cold air at this time frame. We only have one closed 540 line, which again would generally be the rain snow line in a sense. Again, I'm not going to explain it too much. That'll be another Meteorology in Minutes segment. But again, a little bit less cold air on the European, but you still get the same outcome with heavy snow into the higher terrains of the Alps, a huge kind of deformation band forming up here into portions of the Northeast and into the Ohio River Valley, and just kind of crazy weather next week. And then even develops another storm into the Northeast kind of later on down the pipeline 10 or so days from now. So very active look. And again, what I want you to know about this pattern is there is a ton of energy with this setup. So, I'll back this up. This is our vorticity map. Here comes that negatively tilted trough. Again, you can see it very well here. It has that negative tilt to it. We get a ton of cyclonic vorticity advection over the region, and that's exactly what happens. We get this closed low to form, but something that the models often struggle with, folks, is exactly where this happens, how it happens, and it's also often that we get little lobes of enhanced vorticity that form and kind of split off of this big higher, or I guess wider area of vorticity. Again, this is a circle. That's as much spin as you can get. So very high vorticity values, and should little pieces break off, this could get even more complicated in the forecast. And you see that kind of happen here a little bit later next week. We've got vort maxes kind of all over the place. We got one over here. We've got a vort max here, a vort max here. And should we get this vort max with some divergence aloft, again, we could see some impressive secondary storms kind of form. But either way, what this tells me as a meteorologist, or soon to be, is that we're going to see some crazy weather next week through portions of the east. Now, the same map I showed you earlier, chance of at least an inch of snow within a 48-hour time period. Notice this really pick up during the middle and end of next week over the kind of the Appalachia chain here. Now, still relatively low confidence. Now, like I said, the models, they're going to go back and forth. They struggle with little details. Sorry to smack my microphone. So we'll need to watch it. But again, snowfall chances increasing from the Appalachia chain and even into portions of the Ohio Valley. And then after that, you'll notice lake effect snow chances increasing in that 10-day range. So right now, I would say the most likely scenario is we start with heavy snow into the Appalachia chain sometime next week, if the pattern holds, and then transition to more of a lake effect snow kind of machine. Now, if I pull this up to, let's say, the chances of at least 4 inches of snow falling, I think that would be a more significant storm here. You'll notice we are still seeing some areas of brighter colors, especially here into West Virginia. I mean, this is showing about a 40 to 50% chance of at least 4 inches of snow falling, a week or so from now. So that's pretty impressive confidence for that time frame. But again, we're going to need time to monitor it and kind of stay up to date with the latest details. All right, last thing I'll talk about are temperatures, and my oh my, this is a 30-minute video, but here we go. So starting this weekend, warms back up in the east, cools down in the west, obviously due to everything we talked about, and then again, stays warm in the east through the early part of next week, but here comes that cold and that big upper level low, bringing the cold air with it. Again, well below average temperatures, especially into the Appalachia chain from North Carolina up through Pennsylvania, we'll say. Could really see some cold temperatures if we get some snow that falls out of this, and then that could hold on for a while. Now, one final thing I'll add here is how long the pattern lasts is still a question. I think no matter what, we're going to get this cold shot, but is it a shot of cold air that stays for a while, or a shot of cold air that's kind of in and out? That is something we'll definitely monitor over the long run. But that's the latest here for you on this Friday. Again, a lot of great information in here, I think, that hopefully you found useful. Alrighty, folks, have a great rest of your Friday. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you all tomorrow.